Hello, and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and founder and CEO of E=Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver results. It's the job of the leader to make sure that happens. And there's a repeatable formula that helps leaders really succeed. It's the E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. However, how a leader shows up, there's not a mold. You really have to be authentic and show up as yourself. And so that's why we love having these sessions, so we can meet different leaders and learn about them and how do they show up and how do they lead. So this is definitely a live session. It's interactive. Please feel free to let us know where you're calling in from. You can network with others on the call and ask questions. So my guest Aisha and we are all in for questions today. So let me actually get started and introduce to you our guest. She is someone who has a gift, not just for storytelling, but for creating spaces where people feel heard, seen, and valued. Aisha and I first connected through Disrupt HR Princeton 2.0, the beginning, where she served as the incredible MC for that memorable evening. But what really struck me was her voice, both on stage and in her writing. Her posts often begin with "Dear Reader," and by the time you're done, you feel like you've just been handed a warm cup of perspective and maybe a cookie. So Aisha brings humor, presence, and real emotional intelligence to leadership, and she really lives the E3 leadership code in action. So let's jump in. Aisha, thank you so much for joining today. I'm so excited to have you here. And, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you got here? And I'd really love to hear more about the storytelling part of it too.
Okay, well, that's a lot. And hi, Pam. I love you too. I saw her note. I only have I don't want to talk at you, Kathy, because I love
Please.
with you. So I have a non-traditional path to where I am now. I was not raised in an environment where women were talked to about careers and jobs. I didn't think I'd go to college. So I ended up not ever growing up thinking about what did I want to do. So fast forward, sorry, to like in my early 20s. And then I have a little bit more freedom. And I went to college a little bit later than the average bear. And I started learning. And that is when I realized how much I loved to learn. So the basis of everything, I'm a lifelong learner. And then I went through, I think, 23 major changes because I could not, for the love of God, figure out what I was going to do when I grew up because I just loved everything.
Can I just make sure that was 23 different changes?
Yes, I could not graduate and I could not figure out like what I was going to do because it was my first real exposure to learning at my pace and what I wanted. So up to this point, I had been in sales. I had been a sales manager, a manager of people. And I really like sales. I know people hate it and I love it. I consider everything I do sales. So I need to say that because in the relationship piece, it's all sales too. And then I went to college and I was going to do all these different things. And my first major was child psychiatry. And that is actually what I wanted to do until a dear professor told me what his life had been like. And I realized the being that I am, I could not go home every day and live a life if I had been working with children, even though I adore them. So I ended up taking a creative writing class. And that is where, like, when you talk about my writing and how much I love to do. And then I ended up doing a grant writing class. And a professor pulled me to the side and said, "What are you going to do with your life?" And I told him, I really have no idea. I just show up every day and try to make sense of it. And he told me that I had a talent at writing and that he thought I would excel at professional writing. And And I listened to him because he shared a roasted chicken recipe with me that really turned out to be quite stellar. So I, had some rapport with him.
That's a good enough reason. Yeah.
People underrate simple baking and cooking, right? So Kathy, like, not all roasted chickens are the same. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me a really good recipe. So I ended up falling into the nonprofit sector through this chain of events, this short story made longer, because I did a grant for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in my final year and semester of college. And then I was hired on. And then I was in the nonprofit sector for a while. And then I chose to leave and I went to the tech sector, which you and I have some commonalities there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I worked in IT sales and consulting, and I loved it. I loved it. And then I needed to move back to the East Coast because I was born and raised alongside it. And I had been in the desert for 20 years. And I ended up accepting a position. It kind of all happened, it unfolded. And I didn't think I'd go back to nonprofit. And it worked out, and that's where I am. And that is a very short, like 5-minute segue to like how I got here. But we only have 30 minutes, so I can't take you down every path.
I love it. So you're back in not-for-profit
I am.
again, and if I recall correctly, building communities and leading a team and helping drive activities and engagement and success for the organization and the community. Is
Correct.
that right?
Basic, yes. Plain language, absolutely.
Excellent. So I'm going to go back to storytelling for a second, because one of the things that when we first met and you sent out a thing, because we're going to do public speaking, we're going to have to talk about it, but you said you need to send a story that we're going to post on social media and make it something fun.
Yes.
And it gets people to remember you. Do you remember what yours was used as an example?
I remember some of it. I have a tiny phone case. So this is what often looks like a purse.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody commented on my purse and if I was taking cookies at an event. So I sent it as an example to you and the other speakers of what we were trying to create.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did put something about a small, tiny cookie stealing purse. And I think that's what you're referring to.
I am. And I love that story because like it gave me an insight into you and who you are. And I'm like, oh, I need to meet this woman because I love her.
I love you too.
And like, did you realize that you were doing that and creating that connection with others by doing that simple story?
It's not an easy answer for me because I really believe that everything I do is to create relationship and connection. And post COVID, I think that we are kind of lost right now. So I think a lot of people have turned down their signals that they need other people. And I think we're paying a high price for that. And I think I turned mine up to 11. Little spinal tap. I'm past 11 right now. So there was thought and intention. And then there's never a knowledge of how it will unfold. You hope. I always hope to create connection. I always want a relationship to grow and stay. And you don't know.
Yep.
So I try to influence environment is the best way because I don't think you can motivate people. I think that's all internal and intrinsic. So I try to influence environment. So.
I love it. And, you know, when you talk about being in sales and you're doing leadership there, but and I've done a couple of chats about this, is I think sales is leadership as well. Mm-hmm. And you're leading your customers to help solve a problem and, you know, determining what is that problem and to see if your solution then can help them.
I agree. I think everything's sales. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And I think that's what you were saying. And I've talked to a couple of different sales leaders, and the ones that are most successful are the ones that think like a leader. As far as leading a team, you're just leading your customers and you're caring about them. And what I heard you say is you're building relationships with people so they feel good, they feel seen, they feel heard.
When you said that at the beginning, I was like, I needed that today. And if I can, like, what do I want? I'm often asked that. What do I want? And I want to live a meaningful life. And so at the end of my relationships and things that I do, if I can create any space that is safe enough for people to feel like they can show up and be themselves and connect, then that is my stepping stones to where I want to show up with as long as I'm alive and maybe beyond.
Yeah, but and we were talking right before we came on the
Cool.
air a
Yes,
bit about this, right?
we were.
And you talk about the caring about people, taking care of them, making sure everyone's seen and heard. But like me, you've dialed up what we refer to as the masculine energy of
Yes,
getting stuff done and just
yes,
plowing through and making things happen.
yes.
Was that always your natural tendency, or did you have to dial it up, and are you now trying to dial it down a little bit?
That was so fascinating that came up. So masculine and feminine energy was unveiled to me. I think I told you about 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. And when I first saw it, I thought male and female, right? And
Hmm.
it's even labeled that way. So of course we would think that.
Right.
And I think what I shared with you, and I'll say here, is I probably was born very much in a feminine energy. And I also intrinsically have a very high internal drive and I need to take care of people and do many things that would be considered a masculine energy.
Hmm.
And I think it's finding a balance of both. And then when you're in a relationship, shifting to support the other person. However, what I shared with you too is that when this was shared with me about 2 years ago, roughly, I read it and I swear I was like that emoji where the top of my head popped off because I was like, I first was upset and then I knew I had found a new spot of growth because I was so prickly. And every time I get prickly and like upset, I'm like, okay, there's something here for me. Even though that's like intrinsically difficult. Like I don't want to go forward, but I do. I realized that my life and situations and circumstances had pushed me fully into my masculine energy.
Hmm.
And you and I talked about this, I can be so vulnerable and so connected and so soft and acquiescent, even in some spaces of my life. But not everybody gets to see that. I don't think that many people would say, oh, that's the Aisha I know. They see
Hmm.
I think the masculine energy. And I wish we had named them something different. Like I told you, global warming was horrendously named, and here we are.
Yep.
So, masculine and feminine energy to me are the same. It's just finding a balance because without a balance, relationships won't work because you can't have everyone on a team or in any relationship all striving for masculine energy all the time. It just doesn't
Yep.
work. But I'm working on it, Kathy. I'm working on it.
Well, and for a lot of our listeners, and by the way, Melissa, good to see you again. Thanks for joining. Um, it aligns with a lot of what we talk about on Clarity 4D, which is a behavioral assessment, and it focuses on extrovert, introvert, your logically thinking, and heart based.
Mhm.
And the masculine energy tends to be that logical brain working. The feminine tends to be from the heart.
Yeah.
And so it really isn't a male female, as you say. And it's just knowing where your tendencies, because I was born more of the masculine energy. I thrive on, control and getting things done. And in chaos, you probably look to me to make sure that we're running through that door and we're getting everyone out. I'm going to rely on you probably to make sure, is everyone accounted for? How do I, make sure we get people safe? And it is that balance, which is really powerful. And so I've really had to learn how to dial up the feminine energy, because it's been hard for me. And like you, I think everyone on this series knows I'm extremely vulnerable. Everyone knows what's going
Yep.
on in my life, and I share and I care. But when it comes down to the feeling part of it, I can't make that up. And I think I suppress that. And so, yeah, this masculine, feminine image, and I'll have to put it in after the show, the image, because it's powerful, all the words and how the balance. But it was my Reiki healer. She was just like, yeah, Kath, you have like dialed down the feminine. You are so in your masculine energy. You need to change that. I'm like, well, how do I do that?
Yeah.
She's like, you got to have more fun.
That does it. It helps. Which is hard work for you and I. We were talking about
Yes.
this too. That is hard work. It sounds so easy. Relax, let go, have fun. And I'm like, those words are so easy to say. And then comes all this work to get to that point and to have
Yeah.
a moment of, like you call it red and green energy. I think of the nervous system that way because we're like trying to train our nervous systems to let go for a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say let go, that like the hairs on the back of my neck go up, and I'm like, let go. And even my Reiki healer the other day was just like, Kath, I got a surrender. You just, one of those trust
Oh,
circles and lean back. She's like, you got to do that. I'm like, I'm not sure I can.
I agree. I
But I
agree.
mean, this is the fact that we're having this conversation, because some people are probably like, what does this have to do with leadership? But I think this understanding this is critical.
Yes, it is. And it's not talked about in professional settings enough. It really isn't, even though things that we avoid because it's uncomfortable is killing us, is
Mm-hmm.
killing our workspaces and cultures because I almost think we've gone too far. I think a little irreverence would really help us right now culturally. And the discomfort of talking about things that I don't know if I can say that, I don't know if I should, has led to this false politeness. I think that when people say what's wrong, I'm like, the cultures are broken.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really truly engaged at that base level. So I agree with you. And I think that there is this price being paid in every sector. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky. I have had a lot of jobs. I have a very diverse skill set, very valuable in apocalypse. So put me on your team, Kathy, please. You and I can go far.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
we should, because if you don't understand your own energy and your own next spots of growth, how can you really show up for anyone?
Mm-hmm. Do you find when you're able to be vulnerable and ask questions of other people, they do show up better and in more of themselves and authentically?
Not when you first meet me, no. When people first meet me, for the very large percentage, I don't think they know how to react to me. I think a lot of people probably feel emotionally like I'm a threat. I don't remember which test it was, but there was one that gave me this cautionary tale. You do those personality tests. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has one they like. And it told me the cautionary tale of myself was that the majority of the human race is so unused to people showing up authentically that when someone does, they don't trust them.
Mm.
I really feel that I have that feeling with people when they first meet me because people do not want to answer questions authentically. We ask, "How are you?" And then we do not wait for someone to answer and then we're walking away. Or we put it in an email. We never ask for a reply. So I think we're very polite and nice.
Mhm.
I don't think that initially I come off as, I love this, like you did. But I mean, I don't think it's the average response. I think most people are like, I don't know what to do with this woman.
Yeah, I think that because, as you were saying that, and I think there is a trust issue that
Mhm.
people have. And because so many people live in fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and they're not able to show up genuinely and themselves for whatever reason, whatever's happened in their past or, their upbringing and things like that, they can't trust someone else that's able to do it.
Common.
Yeah.
Common. I have that too. I would honestly, some days, Kathy, like when you said you don't look very like upbeat, I was like, today's the day that I woke up and was like, I'm going to do everything myself because I can control it. And then I feel safe.
Mm. There's a control. There's that masculine energy, right? It's
Oh,
having control
yep.
because then you don't have to rely on anyone. No one else can let you down.
Correct.
You know, if you've ever been let down in life, it's really hard sometimes to open up again
Who
and
hasn't been
rely on.
let down? Who hasn't? Even
Yeah, I think,
people we love and that we're in committed relationships with, and even the parental relationship, there is no relationship that we're not going to get let down, I don't think, when you're
yeah,
showing up fully in the relationship. Because I mean, I use this word, but they're expensive. Our relationships are very expensive. So the more we put into them and the more we're really showing up, I think there's innate disappointment. And then it's whether we're brave enough to still move forward despite disappointment and discouragement and being let down and
yeah.
to try and make repair.
How much of it? So knowing what you know, right? Like you come across sometimes like genuinely, you really care. I
I do
know that,
care.
and I've
I
seen
do
it.
care. I do.
And when you finally do, people come across, once they get it, they're in, right? Like, and I assume once they cross that chasm, let's call it a chasm for
Okay.
now, that what then they're friends for life, I assume, right? Once they
I
really
am
get to know you.
still connected with people who were there when I was born. So yes, so I don't
Yeah.
let relationships go very easily.
And do you bring that into the workplace as well?
I bring it everywhere. One of the most powerful pieces of feedback I got from a coworker who's now a lifelong friend, she told me, Aisha, she was a little bit frustrated with me at this point. She said, Aisha, your greatest strength and your greatest weakness is that you are always unabashedly yourself.
Mm,
That will always probably true. I can't imagine a time that that won't be true of me. So how you get me is how I am
yep.
everywhere.
And we've done boot camps with our folks, and one of the things we try to do with the leaders is help them self-explore and reflect on who they are. And I get people that will do some of the analysis, you know, they'll do some of the behavior assessments, and they're like, well, I answered it on how I should show up at work.
Oh, you and I talk. Yes.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 this is about who you genuinely are, because then you're not worrying about which self is showing up here.
It's exhausting. I always think that must be exhausting. The work persona versus
Yeah.
the family persona versus the friend persona. Um, I I told so this is in our other conversation, but we talked about compartmentalization.
Hmm.
I am not a person who does that well. I have to, if something's happening, I literally have to move through it or I will really be in a really tough space. If I don't through move whatever emotion, feeling, conflict, I want to move through it to get to the other side. I won't go around it usually. Usually.
Well, and that's the feminine energy coming out.
I do have a bit of it, Kathy. It's not always obvious, but um, I think the work compartmentalization or the work persona, we're we are pretending for a hot minute that we're not humans.
Mm,
And I think you had talked about how under stress that breaks down a bit. I have worked with people, I have managed people, I have had relationships with people who really believe that they compartmentalize. And when they come to work, once they step through that doorway, which I don't know which doorway that is now that everybody's hybrid, I'm not like their laptop flips off and suddenly their life is not with them anymore. I
hmm.
never related to it. I had one woman who said she had a work hat and a personal life hat on. And I was like, can you sell these for the rest of us? Because I don't have that hat. And also, I don't fully believe it. I have yet to meet a person who fully compartmentalizes when things are awry in their life, which who doesn't have stuff? Like we're all pulling things, as Jessica said. So I don't fully believe that. I'm not going to die on that hill that people can compartmentalize because no one's convinced me yet that that is actually fully true.
I agree. And, you know, having done bunches of team workshops and getting people together and breaking down silos among team
Mhm.
members and stuff, when we show up authentically and the real stories come out and what are our childhood traumas or adult traumas or past experiences. When we can unsurface that, we put everyone on an equal playing field of, oh, wait a minute. I thought you were perfect and I was intimidated by you.
Oh,
But when we really get to know each other, that's when we become a team,
yes.
right? And I'm assuming the people you work with, you're able to call on them and they show up for you and go above and beyond when you
Yes.
need it.
Yes.
And they know that about you. And I know some of the folks are on here from Disrupt HR, the beginning. And I mean, that was what I loved coming into this group, because everyone cared and everyone had each other's back. And it's like, okay, well, I got this, you got that. I mean, that's what it is about showing up authentically, because you create a team and you truly deliver amazing results.
Yes. And that's the plain language saying, of saying it. Oh boy, you said a lot in that. So when we have trauma, it is always with us. We can do a lot of work and create toolkits and add to the toolkits to manage it. And I think we undermine the impact of that in our workspaces, because it doesn't take a lot for someone to feel very triggered in a professional space, especially from leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen innocuous questions asked in a group team meeting about holidays, because they're like, everybody has a holiday, so we're asking questions about that, or everyone has parents. And I'm like, oh, no, not everyone has their parents, and not everyone has had holidays. And it's these innocuous questions sometimes, or behaviors, especially in the leadership thing, that shows I experience it as a lack of thoughtfulness and intent sometimes, because when you start learning and showing up as who you really are, which, Kathy, that's a whole other thing, because some people don't know who they are,
Yeah.
then you start building the trust with the people that you're in these relationships with. So I don't see my work relationships different from other relationships, except that if I manage a person, I'm very careful about those boundaries of, I don't want them to ever feel unsafe with me. And so I'm extra thoughtful about that. And there's so much, you said a lot. My goodness. Okay. I'm going to pause.
But how do you build that trust, and how do you get to know that person and understand what their experiences are?
Trust is built in the smallest of ways, showing up even when you make a mistake. You keep showing up. And one thing that I really learned in my community work in New Mexico was about making amends. So this is one thing that I try to implement, just baseline everywhere. When we harm someone or we hurt someone, it is not on us to decide how to make amends with them. The person that has been caused harm, it is their job to tell us, this is what I need you to do. I need space. I'm not ready. And then I think that it's very important to respect that. I really, really do. So I bring that into my work relationship with my team. And I really have worked on showing up and learning how each of them work. There is this feeling, and we know all this science, and we don't execute. I'm like, I get so frustrated. We know people don't learn the same way. We know
Yeah.
this. We know everybody learns differently. Everybody has different circadian rhythms. We are so unique, and we treat everyone as if we're one. And I know it's wrapping up. So I try not to do that. I try to look at them, figure out how they process, how much time they need when they're asked something, and then I adapt to them.
So this is, I think, why we get along so well, because this one of the things we try to do in the boot camp is we've got an E3 leadership profile, and some of the questions that you have to answer in that is, what's your favorite mode for communication? Is it
Yes.
email? Is it
So
text?
smart.
Is it face to face? How do you like to receive recognition? Is it public or private? How do you like to learn? These are all questions that everyone assumes that, oh, they must like it the same way I like it.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, you've just uncovered so much of how to really build relationships. And I'm going to ask you a question because
Okay.
sometimes I get this question from others. We've become a society that's too soft or too feminine in the energy. And I'm of the belief that to deliver really good results, you need to have that caring and you need to have that femininity. You need to have both the masculine and feminine. And so I think I know your answer, but I'd love for you to, in case people are just joining.
Okay. So what is your question?
How much of is the personal element really tied to the success of driving results? How important is it to deliver outcomes?
The personal investment in
Mm-hmm.
another human.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's everything. You say it. And it you always it has to end in results.
Yeah.
And if we dig into the people and the relationships, we will get what we're looking for. And it takes a whole lot of strength and courageousness to be vulnerable and care.
Yeah.
It
I
is
agree.
absolutely the most expensive thing in my life right now is the caring and showing up. So I don't think we've gone too feminine. I actually think we've gone too much
Too
to the
masculine.
other side. Yeah, I think we've gone too masculine, and it takes that the hair standing up and leaning into that when you feel that way.
Yep.
What's there for you?
I agree. I mean, you can force results by, the authority or through micromanagement or, control, but
Maybe,
yeah, maybe,
maybe.
but, and then fear, right? Like people do things because of fear, but you have a limited runway of when that might work. And sometimes in crisis, it might work, but for a longevity, you're not going to get high productivity. You're not going to get people that care. They're going
Nope.
to be burnt out.
Yep.
And then you're stuck with not delivering on the results.
If that is what's happening, then you probably have a lot of people with 1.5 feet out the door in
Exactly.
your
One
job.
and a half.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. We were talking about that on the last boot camp is the other thing, there's fight and flight.
Hmm.
And then the third F is fawn, that they stay and they don't engage, which is worse.
There's 5 Fs.
Oh,
So,
bring them.
Kathy, we have to talk about this at another time because there's 5 Fs. We only ever talk about fight or flight. And I'm like, there's more. Like, and understanding those is really important because guess where you see it a whole lot? At your job.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to have you back. We're going to talk about the, but give us the preview of the next time you're on. What are the 5 Fs? So fight, flight.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Now you're going to quiz me.
All right.
There's
That's fine.
fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and the other one I always forget, but there's 5.
All right. We're going to have you back on. We're going to talk about that in more depth.
I don't remember because there's one that I was like, I'm a variety of all of them. There we go. There's more.
Oh, no. Carrie's got
the
the
I know.
question mark.
There's another.
So,
We'll figure them out. I'm sorry. It's in the morning and I haven't had.
all good. It's all good.
There's-
Well, Aisha, you and I could talk all day.
I know we really can.
And every conversation I have ends up with me laughing and smiling and having fun and feeling better about the world. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that's joined us. It was great to have you here. And if you want to learn any more about E=Y, you can check out our website. And we will definitely have Aisha back because there's so much to share. And then also check out, she and I are going live on Monday again,
Yes.
but the seats are switched on Monday. And it's a totally different conversation.
It is.
So excellent. Well, thank you all. Have a great weekend and we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Flop. Bye.